Groundbreaking, and this man was right there when it happened. General Manager of the St. Louis Rams, Les Snead, here in studio at the Big 550 KTRS. Les, thanks for joining. Thanks for coming in.
Fun to come down and got to see my wife for the first time in, she'd probably say a month. That's
certainly understandable. It's been an interesting 72 hours for you, I bet.
Yeah, it's definitely been interesting, but when you go through starting the month we had in preparing through Thursday night, you get home Saturday night and spend a lot of days Sunday, your brain's mush. So
right, yeah, I suspect. Normally, if you were in here, we'd start with the first-round draft picks and talk about the whole draft, but this is not a normal draft. Let's first start with your second-to-last pick, which the whole country wants to know about, and that is Michael Sam. When did you guys seriously, realistically think it was possible that you were going to draft him?
Well, I've mentioned a couple times this morning, did ESPN a little bit. We start the process of evaluating these players, have our first meetings really in December.
Right.
And we put Michael Sam on our draft board where we think he is as a football player. At that point, he's on the draft board. He's a draftable player. I've said a few times, we had him in a category designated pass rusher for us, maybe could fit a 3-4 team based on size. But you know what? Everybody can use pass rushers. But, as the draft went along, we're always talking, hey, case by case, each decision or each pick, each shot you get at the draft or the basket, I like to say, is, hey, let's stack a good decision. So you get in the 7th round and we have 4 picks. And at that point in time, he was still, kind of standing decently high on our draft board, and we thought it was a value, and we went and did it.
How much of him being openly gay, not that it affected your pick, but how much did you pause and how much differently did you look at that pick because he was openly gay?
At that point in time, certainly we were aware of the magnitude of the decision. It was going to be a pivot in history. It was way bigger than football. But when we pulled Michael Sam off the draft board for the 249th pick in the draft, it was purely a football decision. Again, aware of the magnitude of it, but at that moment, it was for us as a football team.
Did you preface it with? Did you tell anyone we might do this? Was there any education? Was it? I guess my question is, how much thought process went into the history-making decision of it?
What we did is when it gets down to decisions, we've had a lot of extensive meetings with all of our colleagues that basically do the major brunt of the work in the draft. But when it comes to decisions, it's Jeff and I and Kevin Demoff at the table, and we really don't at that point ask a lot of advice because we've already asked that, and it's just time to make a decision. Now, before that decision, we went down and talked to let Stan know. Because of the magnitude of the decision, we need to let Stan Kroenke know. And he's a great owner. He owns a lot of sports teams. He owns a soccer team in London. He understands diversity in the locker room. He's a Columbia. He was born in Columbia, educated at Columbia or Mizzou. His son played basketball at Mizzou. So we let him know he was all on board. And, of course, being a Mizzou fan, he felt the production that that Michael brought to the Mizzou Tigers this year. So he was on board.
Did you reach out to any current leaders on the team and ask them their opinion? What if we brought in a Michael Sam?
We never did that. That was we felt like that's easy. We make this decision. We believe in the culture of our team, and really our culture is this: team is family. We're all aware this is a business. And in life, heck, when you graduate into life, guess what? You find out life's a business. But at the end of the day, we want the culture of our locker room to be about family because you're going to lean on each other to go face the NFC West per se. So we felt like the leadership in that locker room, they'd have no problem with it.
There was a story in NFL.com that when the pick was announced, the war room stood up and cheered. Is that true?
Yeah, it was, that was, I can tell you this, and never have I been a part of a pick where I kind of had tears in my eyes, but that was a first for me, and I think everybody realized at that moment the magnitude of the decision. But so it was a neat emotional experience, and I don't know if the right word's surreal, but the interesting moment is okay. We're about to end the draft, and obviously when you make that pick, the commentators are doing commentary on a pivot in history, and you have tendency to want to listen, but at that moment, I was like, all right, we got to cut the TVs down. We got to get prepared for college free agency because right after the draft is when you go sign your college free agents. And they're a big part of we got more college free agents on our team than any team in the NFL in terms of on the 53-man roster. So we didn't want to lose that battle, against our 31 competitors.
You also had the very next pick in the draft too, so you had to pick another guy right after Michael Sam.
Yeah, definitely did that. What we did in that situation, that you'll be the first to hear this, is we knew we were picking Michael 249. We knew that when his name was called, pick 250, it may never run across the screen. So we called him before we called Michael, and we said, hey, we got 2 picks back to back here. One's 249. It's not going to be you, but you're going to be pick 250, and you'll understand why we're calling you now. And so we did that, and the rest is history.
Once you made the pick, is the reaction what you expected? Is it more what you expected or less than what you expected?
I think probably from an expectation standpoint, it's probably on par with what you thought. It's until you get the text, some emotional text, in a very emotional thumbs up text that you realize, okay, we were just a part of something that was more than football. It actually affected people's lives in a positive way. So I think that's when you sit back, like I said yesterday, on a Sunday, and as Kara's I'm not a Twitter person. She's definitely a Twitter person. She as we were going through this and she was out of town this weekend, she could almost brief me on the magnitude of what was going on, because at that point in time we were still focused on making the Rams a better football team.
Yeah. There are people out there who say, who cares? He's a football player. Have him go play football. I don't care that he's gay. I don't care that this and that. I don't care. So, however, we can all agree that it's a big story. How revolutionary is this in that you played football, you were in NFL locker rooms, you've been around the guys, quote unquote. How monumental is this really?
Here's how, from football, where we're in the moment right now, and there's going to be a timeline, and long after we're gone, this will just be dot number 1 on the timeline, and this will all be normal. So our goal is, hey, it's maybe it's revolutionary, it's a pivot, but let's get it back to normal as quick as possible. I'll say this about football. I've got a 13-year-old son. We've got a third-grade son, got a third-grade daughter, and I want those guys in a sports locker room. I'll say this, it's a diverse community in there. What's awesome about a sports locker room is diverse group of men, women come together. They unify for a singular purpose, and they're usually facing adversity. And you know what? There's no better lessons in life than going, you know what? You're an individual. A lot of times to get things done on this planet, you're going to have to work with other people. The best way to get that done is unify, and you're going to face adversity. But the unification of it all helps you climb the mountains.
Les Snead with us, Rams general manager, nice enough to come in on what has to be a crazy couple of days for you, because you're headed right over to Rams Park because the guys are all coming in, and you're going to start putting on pads, and here we go with minicamp, right?
We're ready to roll. There, because of the new rules, there won't be pads really until training camp, but they'll get in a couple weeks. We'll start our OTAs, off-season training. I don't even know what the A stands for. Activity, off-season training activity. So we'll put some helmets on. But yeah, those guys are getting in the day. We'll do some orientation, and they will start. We'll gradually get the rookies into a little more football shape over the next few, because you got to realize they've had a long month. They've been traveling all over the country to visit other teams, to interview for jobs. So they're a little out of shape right now. So the worst thing you can do is bring those guys in and get them full speed, because there goes a hamstring, and that sets the player back.
I have to ask you the question, Les Snead. You're the first general manager in the history of the NFL to draft an openly gay football player. You might be the first general manager to cut an openly gay football player as well. I mean, there's no guarantee he makes the team.
Oh, there's definitely. I mean, there's especially in the NFL, there's no guarantee for anything, and that's, when you sign up to be an NFL player, that's what you sign up to do. It's a highly competitive situation, and there's a lot of people on the planet who want to be NFL players, and there's only 53 spots per team, so it's not the easiest chair to get a seat in.
You have how do I want to say this? You have continued to propagate the stereotype of a true NFLer. You'll go to the ends of the earth to find the best players for your team. You don't care where they come from. You don't care what they look like. If they're on Mars and they can play, you'll find them.
We haven't ventured to Mars yet, but I'm sure that might increase the scouting budget to get to Mars, and we'd probably have to get that signed off. But you're right on that. That's really the purpose of one of the main purposes of being a general manager is hey, try to acquire the best players for the roster as possible, so that we can go win the West.
Right. You don't care what they look like, what their sexual orientation, tall, short, thin, man, woman. You don't care.
The neat thing about football from a team sport perspective is, hey, guess what? You put on a helmet, so it doesn't matter what you look like. You put on shoulder pads, you put on pants. Everybody's got all these wristbands on, so you don't know color, you don't know much. You just know that guy's number 20 and he's representing the Rams, and they got to come together and work together to go.
Couple more minutes, a couple more interesting picks. The Rams overall, from the national experts, are getting great reviews. You're included in that, but there's another great story that shouldn't be overshadowed, and that's the kid from Eureka High School.
Oh, that's a great story.
Who you drafted. Tell us about him.
It's great story in that the kid, heck, when he was here, he was a defensive lineman. Went to JUCO, played defensive end, played linebacker at Utah State. Got in a fight while at Utah State, and punched one of his good friends. And at the end of the day, because of some things, a lawsuit from the kid's parents and all of that, he was suspended from Utah State. Comes back to St. Louis. He has nowhere else to go, but he does have a dream to go back to Utah State. And the university set down this checklist, and if you meet those, we'll bring you back. Which says a lot about the school, a lot about the kid. While he was in St. Louis, to pass the time, he worked at our dome and basically cleaned the dome up after our games. So then he goes back to Utah State and moves to safety for the first time, and we're jacked to have him. It'll be a nice story. But the neat thing about that is when you sit there and interview that kid, and that wasn't an easy time. It's a cool story now, but when he's cleaning up that dome in that moment, he doesn't really know where his life's going, and it takes grit to get through that. And you love a kid that's, I hate to say it, we all learn the hard way. He learned the hard way. He had the grit to get through it, and that's you buy human beings like that.
It's a great story. We have just a moment left to talk about your first 2-round draft picks, the first-round draft picks. Talk about them for just a minute, and talk about them for a moment.
I'll start with Greg. We want our division foes, and they're good, and hey, they're front sevens, and that's defensive tackles, ends, linebackers. They're really good, and we needed to get our offensive line, improve it, get it better, and so we can, they got an advantage. Let's maybe counter their advantage and even make it an advantage for ourselves. So he's got some unique, rare physics, and I always tell Kara, football's physics and geometry, and the physics is some God-given mom-dad things, and that size or rare ability to, just a large man that can bend, get under pads, and go probably cause some San Francisco 49ers, Seattle Seahawks to kind of be, I don't know if I like that guy coming at me. Aaron Donald, if we're running a business, our defensive line is one of the most profitable divisions we got. And as a business, you want to keep that thing churning profits, and you know what? We're going to try to make that stronger, and he's a nice complement to what is already a very good DL.
How close were you to drafting Johnny Manziel?
It was scenario one was Aaron Donald. You know what I mean? So he makes our team better. It was fun to get to know Johnny. He's a competitor. He's a dynamic human being. Pull for him. I think he's going to be a good football player in this. But, to help the Rams, Aaron Donald was the better pick.
Well, now getting a chance I met you before, but having a chance to talk to you here, I now know why Stan Kroenke hired you as a general manager. But I have a better understanding as to why Kara married you.
Yeah, that's I'm you know I you know if you want to call it, people talk about marrying up and all of that.
Right.
I'm definitely one of those people.
You had to trade a lot of draft picks up, didn't you?
Yeah, and Kara has informed me that you were a fan. That and I understand you got to do what you got to do. You canceled your season tickets, but I hear that you're back.
That's
on
exactly
board.
right. I didn't cancel. Well, I bought a house and money's going out the door, and
Certainly understand that.
There's only so much money in the till, and
is that the real reason though?
That was the majority of the reason. Okay. That was the majority of the reason. I will say though, after Saturday, actually after the first day, I was like, you know what, I think I should. But then after you guys drafted Michael Sam, it was like, it's groundbreaking on so many levels, and it's such a feather in your cap and Jeff Fisher's cap that you guys would go out and take the stand, because now it's rosy. Everyone's patting you on the back, but there's a lot of people who are talking behind your back. There are a lot of people who are saying some bad things about you. There are many people who think that Michael Sam shouldn't marry, shouldn't have the same rights as everybody else. So take it out of the football realm. There are people who don't think he deserves the same rights as you and me because we're heterosexual. And to stand up and take the slings and arrows, that's worthy of my support.
And I appreciate it now. And I'll give, before myself and Jeff, I'll give Stan Kroenke, I'll give Kevin Demoff, some dibs. But before any of us, I give those guys way back, in the day that actually came up with a constitution that said, you know what, if you live in this country, you're going to have rights. So those are the guys that took the stand. We're just kind of executing their plan. And
we also get a small glimpse of what the African-American players had to go through, right? I mean, I don't know if it's the same. It's a different world, so we can't – it's not a one-to-one, but we're seeing a small glimpse of what the African-American players had to go through at least.
Think, that's probably a good observation. So.
Yeah. Les Snead, we'll let you get back to work. I have to go call the front office and get my tickets for the
hey, here's the deal. You'll be glad you did it. So now you got to do your part. And when you get there, make sure you bring the family and scream hard.
Les Snead, Rams General Manager, congratulations, and thanks for coming in on a busy day.
Thank you.
9:26, back in a moment. Big 550, KTR.